What is the secret to unlocking your full potential? What makes your idols any different than you? How do you become the person you've always wanted to be in life? This is where you get all of your questions answered. My name is Justin Shank, and I sit down with some of the most epic individuals who are changing the world with their actions in business and in life. We discuss how they did it, why they pushed themselves, and more importantly, how they were able to focus on continuous growth to achieve their dreams. Welcome to the Growth Now movement. This week, I sit down with Erik Salzenstein. Erik's journey is something incredibly special and signifies in such a powerful way the process and possibility of change. You see, Erik battled drug addiction, anxiety, and greed. His life spiraled out of control, and he found himself in a courtroom facing some serious time. Erik was sentenced to 4 years in prison and made a decision to do whatever it was going to take to transform his life. So he got himself a coach, he set intentions, and he went after them. Since his release from prison, Erik now speaks on stages across the country, talking about overcoming adversity, breaking free of your own prisons, and doing what you need to do to create your best life, no matter your past. In this episode, we do a deep dive on how Erik was able to overcome, from hiring a coach to surrounding himself with the right people to now being a teacher of this method. I think you guys are absolutely going to be inspired by this, and you're absolutely going to love it. Now, before we get to the episode, I want to ask you guys if you've gotten your tickets to Growth Now Movement Live 2020 yet. The tickets are already flying off the shelves because I just recently announced 2 new speakers. We have Susie Miller, and we also have Andre Young gracing the stage. We're going to talk about leadership, we're going to talk about relationships, and we're going to help you reach the next level in your life. Guys, last year was an absolute game changer for every single person in that room, and I do not want you to miss this upcoming year. We've announced 3 speakers in total. We have 4 more coming, and we have about 11 more movement makers to announce, and it is going to be epic. We cannot wait to see you guys there. Head over to gnmlive.com, grab your tickets today. This is going to be amazing. Now, without further ado, let's get into the episode with Erik Salzenstein. Erik, welcome to the show, man.
Oh, man. Stoked to be here. I appreciate you having me on.
Obviously, your story is something that is very inspirational. I love your messaging now, but it's really about the journey, and that's what I truly believe. And I really believe that it's our rock bottom moments that catapult us to grow into the person we need to be. And so I'm really excited to kind of share your journey with my audience. But why don't we start off with you taking a couple of minutes and talk about who you are today, and we'll break down how you got there.
Yeah, absolutely. And everyone listening, it's a pleasure to be connecting with you today and being a part of the Growth Now movement. And my name is Erik Salzenstein. That's Salzenstein, and definitely gets mispronounced pretty easily.
I can relate.
There you go. So, but yeah, I am on a mission, man. I am on a mission to share my story with anyone and everyone who needs to hear it, and talk about overcoming adversity, talk about finding gratitude in a dark place, and being able to use our challenges and our hurdles to not only learn from, because that seems to be a big thing that people talk about, but to use it as fuel and use it to allow us to just drive our lives forward and progress. And so I'm on a mission, man, to share my story and inspire others, and as a speaker and as a coach. And that's my day-to-day right now. And I'm loving every bit of it.
Yeah, it's wild, right? Like, I think there are certain moments in our lives that, a lot of us have our own moments, and some seem crazier than others, and so on and so forth. But I think, like you said, it's finding the gratitude in the darkness, and it's understanding that life is happening for us, not to us, and not play the victim. And you're somebody who's obviously you've overcome a lot, right? And you've been in situations where you were in prison at one point, and obviously felt like there was no hope. So how did you find yourself there? How did you find yourself in that rock bottom moment of prison?
Yeah. So I think that, through life, we have, it's every day. I think Tony Robbins talks about how many different decisions that we make on a daily basis. It's in the thousands. Like, it's just a mind-blowing amount, from the smallest things to the biggest things. And as we're navigating through our lives, we have choices. And based on all these different things, based on our values, based on our beliefs, based on our upbringing, based on our experiences, based on pain and pleasure, we make decisions based on all these things. And if we start making the wrong decisions, we're gonna end up in a place that we don't want to be. And a lot of times we ask ourselves, like, how did we get here? And for me, it was a series of just small decisions, small choices that continue just to add up, and it had a compound effect. And if we look at it, it started as a young, grade school, and it wasn't anything serious. I was entrepreneurial mindset from the very start, selling candy and CDs in sixth grade. And now you would think, okay, that's not bad, but I didn't channel that energy to continue on a positive road. So eventually it led to things that were bad, and such as, drugs, and it just a series of decisions. So,
yeah, so obviously you learned how to sell and hustle, and then obviously that turned into going down the bad road.
There you go. Right.
Yeah, for sure. And so how did you find yourself even getting to that situation? Because like I look at my life, right, and like I did worse things than sell things the right way. I would take baseball cards and sign fake signatures on them.
Oh man, I haven't heard of that one, man.
So that was like the shady. That's like the most illegal thing I've ever done in my life. And then so how do you then find yourself in these bad situations? Like what is the trajectory? Like what is the path that kind of led you down that road?
Yeah, so I think for me, as a child, I was definitely chasing two base desires. Two desires that I was going after as a child was the feeling and the desire to be needed and wanted, and to stand out and be accepted by my peers. Like those were base desires that I was feeding. And I was an athlete at an early age. So a positive way that I would get attention and stand out was sports. And as an athlete, star basketball player, I was into sports, and I would get attention through that way. And that was a positive way, right? And sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade, selling candy, selling CDs, that feeding that entrepreneurial spirit, still also feeding those base desires to be needed and wanted by my peers, to have the center of attention, being, in the mix. Well, you get into high school, and selling candy is really not that cool anymore, right? Like
not the hot ticket.
No, man, it's just not. And so ninth grade comes, I'm still on multiple traveling basketball teams. I'm still, I'm still heavy in sports, and I haven't really gone off the deep end just yet. So freshman year, but now I'm starting to put more attention into my peers than I was before, right? And sports are now starting to take a back seat. And so at this point, this is like, man, my mom growing up, she taught me God. My dad, he taught me sports. I came from a good home, suburbs of Orlando, Florida. And this is where I basically broke my dad's heart. And I was like, man, listen, I'm done playing sports. I'm done. And I basically threw traveling AAU basketball team, FBVA team, high school basketball team. I threw it all away, and I basically focused on my friends. And at that time, we're all smoking weed on the weekends. And I said to myself, well, listen, man, like if I'm going to smoke it, I might as well sell it, right? And I lost that center of attention. Now I don't have it with sports. I'm not selling the candy and CDs like in middle school. So at this point, I'm like, well, I might as well sell the weed, right? And so that's how I got into that lifestyle. And I basically went all in. I made a decision that I was just going to be like the Scarface of the Orlando suburbs. So, yeah.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
To embrace that type of thing and be like, this is going to be my vehicle for money and attention and all the things that could possibly come from that. And then obviously you ended up in jail. So what was that like?
Yeah. So basically ninth grade, freshman year, I just went all in, it was marijuana. I was prescribed medication for ADD and ADHD, whole nother topic. I can go off on this for days because, we're talking second grade. The doctors are like, here, take this. So I got prescribed medication since second grade. It was Ritalin, then Strattera, then Adderall. Adderall is a huge thing with our youth right now in college and high school. And People are using it because they need that edge, right? As so to say, they think. And it's really, you're just pumping your body with amphetamines. So all through high school, I'm selling my Adderall, I'm selling weed, I'm getting bigger and bigger. I start selling to other high schools. I start getting kids underneath me. And this thing just it got out of control. So post high school, things really started to get, this is when when I got in the thick of it, because we had a pill epidemic that swept through Florida. And this is with the Oxycontin. The big documentary that came out was called The Oxycontin Express. And I got on board with this. I basically found out how much I could make off of this. And I said, all right, I'm all in. And I was taking women mostly women, to the doctors and paying cash to fill the prescriptions and then turning around and selling them. I got addicted to these things. So now it's like my entire life, well, again, going back to what we originally said, one decision after another just it spiraled out of control. And I'm 23 years old, and I ended up catching a robbery charge in what was labeled a drug deal gone bad. And it was an armed robbery. And in Florida, that's punishable by life. So I was facing life in prison at 23 years old. And this is where you could say, like, back was against the wall, man.
Yeah. So at 23 years old, you're facing a potential life in prison. What was going through your head? Because obviously you grew up in this perfect home, right? Your mom was teaching you God, your dad was teaching you sports, and so on and so forth. And then here we are. You're like, okay, I may spend the rest of my life in jail. Like, what was going through your head? What was the emotion?
Yeah. So at this point, I remember just feeling like I lost it. Like it was all over with. I messed up. Like I messed up, and it all kind of came crashing down. And at this point, I was at just such a low. I didn't know what was going to happen. The state prosecutor was not working with us. So we were thinking, like, realistically, we were thinking like 10 to 15 years, and we were hoping for 10 years. And, this is my first time catching felony charges. I had a couple prior misdemeanors, but nothing serious. And, I thought my life was over. And once I came to acceptance that I knew I was going away, and it took a couple months, but I came to that understanding, like I knew I was going to go serve time. I remember having a phone call with my dad, and I said, Dad, this is in county jail. I said, Dad, man, my parents are like, they're shell shocked, as you can imagine. I'm the first Salzenstein to serve time. Just like we don't have, so my parents are shell shocked. I have two younger sisters. And the family's just broken up. And so I remember being on the phone with my dad. I said, Dad, listen, I don't know how much time I'm going to get. I said, but I'm just so tired. For the last however many years, I've been addicted to drugs. I've been selling drugs. My life has just been, no vision, no direction, lost, full of anxiety. I was putting on a facade every single day, trying to be something I wasn't. And drugs is what fueled me to get me by and to keep feeding the lifestyle that I had gotten used to. And so I told him, I said, I'm ready for a change, man. I don't know what I said. I don't know how much time I'm going to get. I want exactly what God needs me to do. I don't want a day longer or a day early. I want exactly the amount of time that I need to create a change in my life. And he was like, all right, man, we're going to get through this. Wow.
So how long did you end up serving?
So the state prosecutor who wasn't working with us, this was a lady, she was stonewalling us. We no offer. She was like, I think her first offer was 20 years or something. It was high. It was too high. I was like, no way. We'll take it to trial, and let the judge decide. And cause hoping that he'd give me less than that. So all of a sudden she quits. She gets married to some doctor and quits, drops her entire caseload. So now her caseload gets dispersed to different attorneys. The new state prosecutor who picked up my case used to be a public defender with my private attorney when he was a public defender years ago. So they're like friends.
Yeah.
And this was just a huge break for me. And basically he said, look, I can't give your client the minimum amount of time that he could give me is 3 years. He's like, I can't give him the minimum, but I can give him I offer him a year over the minimum. So they offered me 4 years, no probation afterwards, take it or leave it. My attorney tells me if I don't take it, I'm done. He's leaving. He's not even going to continue working with me. He's like, you got to take this, bud. Like, this is it. So I took that as the sign that that's the amount of time God wanted me to have, was 4 years. And so I went ahead and accepted that plea. And yeah, man, that's when the journey started, really.
So let's talk about that, right? So here you are doing drugs, selling drugs, you end up in jail. And then obviously you're forced to get clean over 4 years. And there's a lot, I imagine, and I've never been in jail, but I imagine there's a lot of time to think. There's a lot of time where you can really find yourself in a dark place. And I imagine this is the moments where you go finding gratitude in darkness. How were you able to find gratitude while you were in jail?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So here's a big talking point that I have with my story, and this relates to business. This relates in so many different areas. I wanted to change. We take it back to that phone call with my dad. Wholeheartedly wanted to change. I got to prison, and now I'm in a completely different world. And here's the big thing. You can want to do something. You can want to lose the 15 pounds. You can want to gain gain the 10 pounds of muscle. You can want to scale to 10K a month, 15K a month in your coaching business. You could want to start the podcast. All these different things we can want to do. You can want to do, right? But if you don't have a plan in place, if you don't have some sort of structure, some sort of guideline, some sort of map to follow, and then on top of that, which I think is even more important, is someone to hold you accountable to the steps that you have to take, we're naturally going to revert back to our means. We're going to revert back to what we know and to what's comfortable. So all these things that we want to do, it sounds really good, but we won't end up doing them because there's pain connected to that unknown. There's discomfort walking through to get to that place. You better believe you've been in this for 3.5 years now. Would you say that in where you're at now in your podcast with Growth Now movement, I mean, you've come across a heck of a lot of challenges, adversity, and some tough sticking points, right?
Dude, it's been crazy. Like, I can't tell you how many. Yeah.
So if you don't have someone, and I'm sure you've had some mentor guidance, if you don't have, and I know I'm sure you've had a plan in place, if you don't have structure and someone to hold you accountable, someone to help you through this terrain, it's going to be, I almost think, I don't want to say impossible, but it's going to be a heck of a journey, and it's going to be a lot harder. So with me, my first 6 months, I basically wasted, because I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea how to create this change that I wanted. And so I went back to what I knew, what was comfortable. I went back to telling what I was doing on the streets, how much I was selling, the parties, the women. I started smoking cigarettes in jail. In prison. I started selling cigarettes. I was getting into fights. Like, I was basically wasting and living the way that the majority of people in there do. And it took me 6 months, and all of a sudden I had like snapped out of it. And I woke up, I was in confinement at the time, and I basically just said, what am I doing? You're going to come out the exact same person. And it's like, now being in the free world, it's like, if you don't make a change, a year from now, you're going to be in the exact same place, and you're going to ask yourself, what the hell am I doing? What did I do for the last year? And so that was a moment, that 6-month mark was a moment for me where I woke up, I called my brother. He's played a huge part in my development and to where I am today. He's a high performance coach, Stanford graduate, top 100 in the world at one point, professional tennis player, like complete opposite of me, the golden child versus the black sheep. And I reached out to him. I said, Jeff, I need your help, man. Like, what do I do? And so he, from that point on, started coaching me. We had weekly coaching calls, sending me books, and that was when gratitude really started to get introduced into my life. Going back to your question, how do you find gratitude in a place like that? I mean, you have to change your entire process. And when I got a coach, my entire process changed. My thinking, everything changed, and that's when gratitude started to get introduced to my life.
Yeah, so let's talk about this process a little bit, about how you were able to make the shift. Because look, I mean, the end of the day is you're inside these prison walls. You might get outside once a day, whatever the case may be. There's other prisoners in there. I'm sure it's not the safest environment. And yet you start with gratitude and you can start to see the light at the end of the tunnel, but there's more than just gratitude, right? Gratitude is the beginning. That's the starting point. What was the process after that to really make moves so when you got out, you had momentum?
Yeah. So one of the big things that I remember doing basically the entire time, at one point it must have been for like 2 years straight. I was meditating, visualization type meditations every single morning and right before bed. In the morning time, see, we have chow at 4:30 in the morning.
Oh,
That's breakfast. Yeah, 4:30 in the morning is when we wake up for chow, and you got a guard yelling out the chow, chow. Everybody like wakes up, and you know what I mean. It's just it's not fun. But so chow time, everybody goes and eats, comes back, and we don't have first count until 7 a.m. So everybody usually goes back to sleep until first count, which is 7 a.m. That's when you go to your work call. That's when you kind of technically have to get out of your bunk. And so what I would do is while everyone went back to sleep, I would go in the little day room. The day room was, we had a couple benches, a TV up in the corner, a couple card tables. It was kind of like the room that people would play cards and hang out in. So I would go to that day room. Nobody would be in there. It was the one time where you could definitely depend on getting some silence. Mm-hmm. And I would go in there and I would meditate. I would read. I would do my studies. But one of the big things that I did was visualization type meditations. I would visualize my future self. Now, this is somebody who I had no vision or direction in my life prior to prison. I mean, again, like I came from a good family, but I was never taught true like value systems, goal setting. It was very black and white with my family, and they loved me, they provided, but I just didn't get this sort of teaching. And so like I couldn't really envision what I was going to be doing. I had no idea I was going to be speaking when I started these things. But I would visualize myself standing upright, dressed properly, feeling good, smiling. I would picture myself like being just a positive person and going through my day. I was bigger. I had more muscle. I was healthier. And I would just visualize myself being in a successful role. And this finally got to a place where my subconscious caught up. And when it caught up, now this was who I was. And this goes now back to being in alignment with your values. I mean, Justin, like I was constantly asking myself, is this something my future self would be doing? And that kept me going. That kept me moving in a positive direction and gaining momentum in my transformation.
That's such a powerful question. Like, when you're in a spot like that, or even let's make it more relatable. Like you're just unhappy with your life. Like you don't like your job. You don't like the physical condition you're in, to ask yourself, is this what my future self would do? It immediately snaps you into that kind of mindset in that moment of like, I am already that person. And so your actions kind of start to take place, and it starts to create like that next thing, which I absolutely love. Like it's such a freaking powerful question. Yeah. And so when were there ever moments where you had setbacks, where you fell into the trap again while you were in prison, or even after you got out of prison? Like, have there been setbacks, or has this question kind of kept you on that path?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, as far as setbacks, I mean, when you're in a world like that, you're still getting pulled in different directions. So, part of that environment is, it's a violent place, and I talk about a few different things that allowed me to go through my journey on my own. I never joined a gang for protection. Nothing incredible. I had to defend myself. I had fights that I didn't necessarily want to be involved in, but they got brought my way because I had to quote unquote prove myself, or I was getting tested, whatever the case is. But at those moments, you kind of get pulled back into that alternate style of life that and so at times you would feel like, man, is this ever going to end? Is this going to take a turn for the worse? It's just it's a crazy environment to be in, and you have to stay strong in your values. And after so long, people started to recognize who I was and what I was about. And I talk about how as an alpha male, your communication has to be strong. It's got to be precise. It has to be deliberate, and it has to be intentional, right? And so I would let people know this is the time that I was doing. And after so long, that kind of stopped. That prevented a lot of different situations from getting to a place that could have really messed up my program. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense, and I love all that stuff. And so, when did you end up getting out of jail? Was it like 2017 or something?
Yeah, 2017, 13 to 17. Yeah,
it wasn't even that long ago.
No, 2 years, man. I've been out 2 years now. Literally, my anniversary just passed. It was July, mid-July is when I got out. So my 2-year anniversary just passed.
Wow. That's wild, dude. And obviously you've had so much progress. I mean, from what I've seen since we've connected, it's absolutely amazing. And what I realize a lot of times when people go into prison for whatever the reason is, there's a lot of shame that they carry post time spent, right? They don't talk about it. And even if they do, it's in a shameful way. And then sometimes that then reverts them back to the same actions they were doing before, because it was a way of healing themselves or feeling better in that moment or whatever, whether it's drugs or whatever.
For sure.
So how do you overcome that? How are you prideful of the mistake instead of being shameful? Does that make sense as a question?
Yeah, great question. Yeah. We have a 75% recidivism rate. So I think it's actually 78. So, no, man, I'm messing up these numbers. The last one, I think it's 68. I think it's basic. It's almost 7 out of 10. Yeah. So basically that's within the first 3 years. So basically 7 out of every 10 inmates that get released, 7 of them are going back to prison within the first 3 years. And then if you dig a little bit deeper, and I don't have any stats for this, but out of the 3 that stay out of prison, I'm going to say that 2 to 2.5 are probably at a lower end of what they're doing in the world. And it's because exactly what you said. I mean, I still talk to guys who have gotten out, ones that are trying to do better. And then I've talked and spoken with guys who fell back off, and, I don't communicate with them at this point, but it comes down to a couple things, like belief in themselves that they can do something better with the scarlet letter on, right? Because we've all made mistakes. A lot of our stuff's in the closet. A lot of our stuff, people walk around with their mistakes and we don't even know what mistakes they made, but they wear those. They let those mistakes that people don't even know happen, like the guy who ruined his marriage, and now he's walking around and he just doesn't have the confidence that he used to have. He's just not that alpha self. And he's wearing that mistake and we don't even know. We just may look at him and say, something, I wonder why he's so quiet, or I wonder why he never really wants to, whatever the case is. See, we all have our stuff, but it's a matter of how you look at it, your perspective on it, and what you do with it. So for me, I recognize that, man, prison allowed me to change my life. Like, I'm a new person now, and I'm walking in a new light. I'm adding value to the world in a new way. And I basically, I'd be foolish not to say that prison was an awesome thing for me. It's not, I don't wish it upon anybody. I'm not saying go to prison so you can get here, but what I'm saying, for me, that's what I needed. That's my story. And it's about embracing your story. It's about grabbing the gold, grabbing why, and whatever happened in your life, there is something there for you to learn from and grab onto. And so I was able to, since day one getting out, and building up into that day getting out, I was able to just find gratitude in my story and just grab onto everything that I learned. And now I'm going to share it with people, and I want to share what I'm doing. And I think at the end of the day, it's about owning our mistakes, owning our challenges, taking that adversity and finding what is in there to serve us, and then walking in that light. Because when you do that, now your mistakes, these things that are quote unquote, these scarlet letters, they're not going to hold us back. They're going to serve us.
I love that, man. And that's what I talk about a lot on this show and in my solo episodes and stuff like that. I talk about sharing your story and the power that has, not only for yourself, but also to share it and what impact it has on other people.
Yeah.
I've had multiple people, a handful of people reach out to me and say, because of your show, because of your story, I decided not to kill myself.
It's huge, man. It's huge.
It's gigantic. And the thing is this, if you do not embrace your story fully and then use that as a tool to help the world, you're being selfish.
Yeah.
And that's why I love that you're sharing this in a shameless way, because you're somebody who's taken that rock bottom moment and you've turned it into such a powerful thing. And here you are now speaking all over the country, sharing your story and impacting the world with what you've learned, and obviously as a coach, sharing these tools with your clients as well, which is absolutely amazing. And the cool part about this podcast as well is that, I have the opportunity to interview some of the world's most successful people. Obviously,
I haven't listened to it yet, but I just saw on the website you had Sean Stevens. You had the 3-foot giant on there.
Yeah, man, he's been on there. I mean, Joel Marion.
That's what's up. Awesome.
So I just had Jinder Mahal was last week this week came out today from WWE. Cool. It's been a whirlwind of a ride, right? And I like to look for trends in the people I interview. And so my question for you is, what is your definition of success? And what are 3 things you do every single day to ensure that success?
Oh, wow. That's solid right there. Definition of success is constantly going after what it is that resonates with you in your heart, that feels right, how you're showing up, going after that constantly taking steps and achieving those steps incrementally. So I don't think it's one specific place. I think success is an ongoing thing. I've been achieving success since that 6-month mark back in prison, 2013. And I'm at one place now that I wasn't at before. And a year from today, I'm going to be at another place. I'm successful now, but I'm going to be successful. I'm going to be at another level of success. And it doesn't even have to be vertically. I mean, it's basically if you're staying true to what it is that you believe in, your values, you're serving others, you're not subtracting, you're adding to this world. To me, you're walking in success. And then it's to what degree and to what levels. And I mean, we can go off all on that, but yeah, I'd say it's an ongoing thing.
Awesome. And what are 3 things you're currently doing every single day to ensure that success for yourself?
So reading for sure. Always reading. Always have a book going on, and you just got to keep feeding podcasts. So basically, reading be one. I'll go ahead and group podcasts with that. And then masterminds, coaching, we'll group that together. Always looking to acquire more information and more knowledge. So that way you can give back to the community, give back to your people, is huge. And I would say the third thing is challenging yourself. So I'm always looking to kind of get out of my comfort zone. Hot yoga was something that I've taken on, and that's been awesome. Getting a lot of good stuff from that, and just challenging myself. Going canoeing and kayaking now, getting more out in nature. So trying something new, getting out of your comfort zone, I think is a big one. It's a great way to expand and to keep climbing that ladder of success.
I love that, man. I absolutely love that. So obviously to the people listening right now, if there was one thing you could tell them, if they feel like they're in that rock bottom moment or they feel stuck in the moment that they're in, what's the one thing they can do right now to shake themselves loose and start moving forward?
Move, baby. You got to move. Listen, here we go. Small steps can create huge change. Small steps. Don't overthink it. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to know how you're going to get there, but just move. Just take a step. Write that's okay. That's that, right? I got to add a little something else though. Another thing that I'm big on this when it comes to my coaching with my clients, get it out of your head and down on paper. We have so much stuff going on. David Allen, he talks about open loops in our minds. Think of every thought that you possibly have in your mind right now. They're all open loops and they get tangled. We got to call the doctor. We got to set the appointment up. We got to still call and pay that one thing that we've been forgetting. We've got all those small things like fix the cabinet drawer, organize this, fold that. So those are the small things. Then we have our business goals. Then we have our relationship goals. Then we have the 3 friends that we haven't called in a month. We got our grandma, breathing down our back. She misses us. We got to call her. I mean, we've got all these different things that we need to get done. Man, let's get organized with our thoughts. Get them out of your head and down on paper. One thing that I would have you do is put relationships down on paper. Then put career. Then put, or business, whatever. Put health, is categorize your life, compartmentalize it on a piece of paper, and write down the things that either need to get done or that you want to do, goals that you want to do in those categories. And when you visualize that, when you see it down on paper, you're going to get some momentum just for doing that exercise. I promise you, that's going to be a win in itself. But then after, the next step is you can actually get organized in how you're going to start knocking these things off. What's at the top? What's priority versus the other? What can be done right now? Like the things that take less than 5 minutes, let's just go ahead and get those off of our plate. And so when you do that, that's a huge exercise. So if you're feeling stuck, I'd say get your thoughts out of your head and down on paper, and then don't overthink it. Small steps can create huge change. Take action and move.
Awesome. Love it, man. So obviously, before we get to the last question that I wrap up every single episode with, let's get to the important stuff. How do people get a hold of you? Where do they follow you? Where do they hire you to speak, to coach, all the fun stuff?
Yeah. So Instagram is definitely my main social media platform I'm using. I'm going to be getting back on YouTube here, but so Instagram is just my last name. It's at Salzenstein, SALZENSTEIN. And then you can go to my website, which right now we're making some adjustments on it. But if you want to book me to speak, if you want me to come out, coaching, it's eriksalzenstein.com. And that's Erik with a K, eriksalzenstein.com.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it. And obviously this podcast is called the Growth Now Movement. So I wrap up every single episode with this one question. And that is, in your life, what has been your biggest moment of growth?
First thing I thought I was going to prison. That's just a crazy statement to make after that question, dude. Oh man, my biggest moment of growth. I think hiring a coach. Hiring a coach was my biggest moment of growth. And that, obviously it's everything that came from that. But that move right there was such a pivotal thing, and it was such a game changer for me. We would take everything and go back to that initial move right there.
Awesome, man. Erik, thank you so much, man. First of all, for sharing your story so openly, but then taking it to a level where you're impacting the world, man. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been a blast.
Justin, I appreciate you. Growth Now Movement, I appreciate you guys. It's been a blast. Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you guys so much for being a part of the Growth Now movement. This is how you can really help me out. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please share it out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that fun stuff. And let's grow this movement to epic heights. And it's all going to be because of you guys. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.